We begin our look at economic geography with this image of downtown Baltimore. This image was taken from atop the Domino Sugar Factory, a historic secondary sector facility overlooking downtown Baltimore. The landscape in front of you reflects tertiary and quaternary economic activities. So the Domino Sugar Factory serves as a reminder that Baltimore's economic geography, its economic landscape, continues to evolve. In this lecture, we're going to look at the different sectors of the economy. We're going to look at the transition from the old economy to the new economy. And then we'll wrap up by looking at where we produce different goods. So as we go through our look at economic geography, remember we're asking ourselves why and where certain goods are produced. To create a framework for our look into economic geography, I encourage you all to draw this following model. This is known as the economic base model. And this model shows us in a very simplistic form how an economy grows and how regional development occurs. Now give yourselves a moment to train your eyes on the different variables that are going on here. But our economic base model compares and introduces two key concepts, the ideas of basic versus non-basic economic activities. As you could see, basic industries gain money from outside of our region. So in this example, we see that the basic industry highlighted or circled in green is drawing revenue from other regions. Our non-basic industries serve our local region. So when we think about basic versus non-basic, a couple examples of basic would be Amazon, Towson University, Johns Hopkins Hospital. All of these companies draw money from outside the region into our region. Now when we look at non-basic activities, we're looking at Walmart. We're looking at a local eatery, your favorite restaurant or pub or coffee shop. We're looking at your local barber. We're looking at economic activities that serve your local population. So the few key variables that we're looking at in this model, one is our region versus another region. We're looking to draw money from other regions into our region in order to grow our local economy, in order to generate regional economic development. If we simply had an economy based on non-basic activities, we would just circulate money. The economic strength of the area would not increase, our economy would not grow. So when we look at regional developments, when we look at cities that are trying to attract a Amazon headquarters, when we're looking at Baltimore's efforts to maintain Under Armour, we're looking at these efforts to maintain or attract key basic sector activities. Non-basic generally grow as our basic sector industries grow. As our economy grows, we experience what's known as the multiplier effect. And this is the total number of jobs created for each new basic job. So for every doctor that Johns Hopkins hires, for every provost that Towson University hires, these individuals are part of an organization that's bringing or helping bring money in from the outside. So when a new doctor moves into Baltimore to work at Johns Hopkins Hospital, that individual needs a realtor, needs a real estate agent to help him or her find a place to live. If this doctor has a family, their children may go to a local school or daycare center. They're going to need to buy groceries. They're going to need to buy clothes. They're going to spend their money earned at Hopkins in the local economy. So a place like Johns Hopkins, which serves people from all over the world, is drawing money into the Baltimore region. That money is then spent to support, to generate demand for new, non-basic businesses. So as a place like Amazon opens up in your city, or as Towson University expands, the demand for more coffee shops, bookstores, clothing retailers, barbers, restaurants, nightlife spots, those are all going to increase. So basic sector draws money in, non-basic sector circulates. Now this multiplier effect is generally a positive effect, but this economic base model works the other way as well. So historically, steel mills were found throughout the Rust Belt, cities like Youngstown, Ohio, Baltimore, Maryland, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. These steel mills created a tremendous multiplier effect, but when the steel mills closed, a lot of those non-basic businesses also closed because they could no longer they were no longer attracting individuals in the basic sector to spend their money there. So as the basic sector jobs went away, as people lost their jobs or relocated to other parts of the country, they brought that income and spending power with them, and the local non-basic businesses suffered as a result. So the economic base model, again, a very simplistic way of looking at regional economic development. You need a strong anchor basic business to attract money from the outside. So businesses, cities are looking to grow their regional attractiveness, and cities are going to try to capture those basic sector businesses in order to bring more revenue into their area. When we ask ourselves, what do we produce? This allows us to look at the different sectors of the economy. The graphic on your screen shows us the 4 different sectors: primary, secondary, quaternary, and tertiary. And you'll notice over time that tertiary has really took off. The percentage of our workforce in the tertiary sector has increased dramatically since 1970. You'll notice that primary sector activities from pre-industrial to post-industrial, highlighted in yellow, have dropped significantly. You'll notice that quaternary are really starting to take off in the recent past, and you'll see the secondary peak and then dip. So we'll look at each of these different sectors of the economy. The primary sector is also known as the raw materials sector. You'll see a small fishing fleet on your screen. Think about the different occupations that extract raw materials from the earth. We're looking at fishing, we're looking at agriculture, we're looking at forestry, we're looking at mining. This group represents the smallest percentage of our workforce in the United States. We're looking at a group, a sector that encompasses about 3% of the U.S. workforce. Despite being very small, this is very essential. Think about the importance of our food source. Think about the importance of natural resources like coal in supporting our electricity production. Think about fishing, the demand for certain types of fish. Locally here in Maryland, think about the waterman culture that extracts blue crabs and oysters from the Chesapeake Bay. Initially, the primary sector was based on subsistence, meaning your farmer, your fisherman would really just extract for their family, for their local extended family. Over time, the primary sector has changed. It's become more intensive, where farmers today are producing food for over 150 people per farmer. We've seen that the primary sector has become heavily commercialized. So we've seen these different efficiencies arise in the primary sector so that we could produce more with fewer employees. The image on the screen right here is of strawberry pickers. These strawberry pickers were primarily Polish immigrants who went down to modern-day BWI Airport in the summer to pick strawberries for the Baltimore community. The image on your right shows you the different types of technology, innovations that have been introduced to agriculture in the 20th and 21st century. So the primary sector, while critically important, though very small when we look at a percentage of the workforce, has become very commercialized, and it's transformed over the last few generations. We have an increased use in machinery, technology, pesticides, and fertilizers. So the men on the left side of your screen simply picked strawberries that grew what we'd consider today organically. Simple farming practices, simple extraction, simple transportation to market. The image on your right shows you farms that transport goods across the country and many times overseas. So through the Green Revolution, through introducing science and technology, from seed genetics to growing to harvesting, we've seen our yields increase tremendously. So our food source has become more of a business, more of an efficient machine to grow, produce, and get our goods to market. So the primary sector again looks at raw material extraction, but it's transformed over the past 100 years from a relatively subsistence-based traditional form of farming to something that is highly mechanized, highly efficient, and includes the use of the latest science and technology. The secondary sector is known as the manufacturing sector. And this is where we take raw materials and we create finished goods. We add value. So the sum of the parts is worth more than the individual pieces. And this form utility is found in all different types of manufacturing. It could be washing machines, it could be cars. The logo on your screen is of the Maryland Brewers Association. So think of something as simple and as ubiquitous and as common as beer. And beer is part of this manufacturing sector, this modern manufacturing sector, where we're bringing water, hops, wheat together and we're producing a finished product. The characteristics of the secondary sector today are pretty profound. We've had a declining workforce since the early 1970s. So the percentage of individuals working in the secondary sector has consistently declined over a couple generations. We're seeing increased production and revenue. So while our workforce is declining, the amount of money coming in is actually increasing. And we're seeing the increased use of high tech. So our production facilities are becoming more automated, they're becoming more efficient, they're becoming more profitable, but they're also relying less and less on humans to supply some labor. When we look at the way manufacturing has changed in the United States, we can look at two different cities to highlight this transition. Detroit was the center of the auto industry, and mass production was the way we created for generations. So Detroit, from the late 1800s through the mid 1900s, really highlighted giant factories, de-skilled or semi-skilled people, automobile production, conurbation, meaning we have a string of cities and towns that support this major industry. Then in the 1970s, we saw a global shift occur. We saw what's called deindustrialization, where these giant factories and these centers of mass production left the United States. Companies pursued low-wage labor in other parts of the world. So it was cheaper to produce automobiles in other countries and ship them to the United States than it was to actually produce them here in our domestic market. We see that during deindustrialization, many of our workers left the secondary sector and went to tertiary employment, which we're going to look at here in just a moment. And during the last couple generations, we've experienced the increase, we've experienced the evolution of the high-tech industry, where our workforce is no longer semi or de-skilled, no longer working in these giant factories. We're now working in highly skilled, high-tech facilities that hire not high school graduates, but individuals with advanced degrees, individuals with a history, a track record of building unique, rare, in-demand skills. The shift from the old economy to the new economy not only takes place behind closed doors, but also changes our cultural landscape. The image on your screen shows Baltimore Harbor on the left during the middle of the 20th century. On the right, you see the same part of the city in the 21st century. We've went from this heavy industry, big factories, semi-skilled labor, to highly skilled labor, to a workforce that has more disposable income. And you can see on the right that's the factory that lined the south end of Baltimore's Inner Harbor historically was a closed off area that produced paint, that produced chrome, that built ships, and now it's a marina, it's a shipyard, because our new economy, individuals working in this new economy with the skills and education are making a lot more money. They have more disposable income and they have more free time. So we've seen this shift not only occur in what people do, but also how they spend their free time. The image on the right shows a Baltimore that no longer has heavy industry, but one that caters to high wealth individuals, individuals working in this new economy with high, excuse me, with many skills, with high education, with high salaries.